So all people pursue happiness. That's why Peter in Luke chapter 5 is out all night on the boat trying to catch fish. Thanks be to God that we live in a country that was set up recognizing this, that the government cannot provide the highest good. I was talking with somebody the other day, and they mentioned how they just said to somebody else, Happy 4th of July, and over again, these people were like, well, if it weren't for the current administration, we'd be happy and we'd be able to celebrate, or there's just not that many things to celebrate about America. Man, 250 years of the longest running experiment in democracy, no matter who the president is, that itself might be worth celebrating. But I think there's more to it than that. When our founding fathers wrote the Declaration of Independence, they wrote these words. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights, or unalienable, depending on who you are, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now, I'm not here to promote a certain political ideology or even to praise America, though I do love our country, and we do owe honor to those in authority, as the fourth commandment bids us. But just think in that statement, how much of that only makes sense because of Christianity. If you look at the history of politics, political philosophy, before Christianity gained hold in the West, you won't find anything about men being created. You won't find anything about men being equal or with certain human rights. If you take Christianity out of the equation, none of it makes any sense. And so when you get to the line that you have the right of the pursuit of happiness, there is, I think, a Christian way to understand this. And it might actually be the most Christian way of phrase of all. It fits, I think, pretty well with our text last Sunday, Luke chapter 5, where Peter, Jesus is out on the lake, and the disciples are fishing, and Peter's there. Peter's fishing, and he's looking for something. He's pursuing something. The pursuit of happiness is actually a very ancient concept. This did not come around in the Enlightenment. It's much further than that, much older than that. St. Augustine talked about it. Aquinas talked about it. It can be equated, I think, with the Greek word telos, the end goal, the highest good. That word actually makes a part of Christ's last words from the cross, tetelestai, or it is finished, it is done. Right? So what does the Declaration of Independence mean by happiness? I think we might instead use the word good or blessed. What is the good life? What is the blessed life? Right? What is the highest good? What is the life worth living? What is a flourishing life? And but whatever it is inalienable. That is, it is something that the government cannot give, or anyone else on earth. Nobody can give it, but only God. Thanks be to God that we live in a country that was set up recognizing this, that the government cannot provide the highest good. Right? This is only something that God does. But for many, the pursuit of happiness means something like, it means the same thing as liberty. It means this radical autonomy. It means my own independence, that I am my own person. I'm not bound to anyone else. I am free to do whatever's best for me, pursue this, right? Pursue whatever's best for me. All right. So all of life becomes about pursuing this elusive happiness. But what happens is that life, liberty, and happiness really get muddied together. And this affects how we work, why we work, and how much we work. And it's been said, all people seek happiness. Different people go about it in different ways, but everyone works for this goal of happiness. Many people spend a ton of money pursuing it. Maybe they'll buy a boat. right? That's going to make them happy, right? It's why some people go to war. It's why others avoid it. To say religion is the cause of all war is, it's not really fair. But whatever you love the most, right? Whatever you're pursuing the most, that is your God. If it's not the true God, well, maybe there is something to that. So all people pursue happiness. That's why Peter, in Luke chapter 5, is out all night on the boat trying to catch fish. But he realizes, as I think that we do, that since perfect happiness always evades us here below, maybe we could just be a little bit happier. Just a little bit happier. And fishing, I think, is the perfect analogy for this. You can imagine Peter on the boat saying to James and John, "Hey guys, just 5 more minutes. We'll catch something." I went fishing last week with my boys, and that's what I found myself doing. We went out early in the morning, but we didn't catch a single thing. We didn't get even one bite. And as the morning went on and the water got warmer near shore, I knew it was pointless. We weren't going to catch anything. But I just wanted to catch one fish, that elusive fish. If only I can get one fish, then I'd be happy. Right? This is the fundamental temptation that shows up in Genesis 3 when the devil comes to Eve in the Garden of Eden. He tells her that she should desire just a little bit more. Right? Just a little bit more than what God has given. That'll make her happy. Right? He convinces her that her duty to obey her Creator was a threat to the fulfillment of her desires. Before, God had asked Adam and Eve to eat and to tend the garden because that would fulfill all their desires. Right? There was a unity of desire and duty. But from the fall into sin until now, there's this conflict between duty and desire. Or to put it another way, we now live in a world where want and ought have been divided. What ought I do is divided against what do I want to do. In paradise, in Eden, that wasn't the case. Desire was holy. Everything Adam and Eve desired was actually good, right? It was good for them to want those things. And there was nothing that they did not want. They pursued happiness, and they actually got it. We merely pursue it. This conflict is seen with Peter, again, in the boat as he's fishing. When Jesus comes along, though, he's caught like a fish himself, caught between what he wants and what he ought. Right? Peter just desires fish and to go home and sleep. Right? Jesus gives him a duty, and he says, "Launch out into the deep and let down your nets for a catch." Well, that's crazy. Not only is it more work, it doesn't make any sense for him to launch out into the deep. That's not where the fish are. It's pointless. But he does it, we can imagine, begrudgingly. And all of a sudden, he catches more fish than the boat can hold. Right? So many, in fact, that the nets are breaking and the ships begin to sink. And Peter is now in danger of drowning. Right? But he got exactly what he wanted. This is what he desired, but it's too much. And now Peter says the same thing that we would. "Depart from me, for I am a sinful man, O Lord." Peter wants Jesus to depart. His desire is for Jesus to go away and for things to not change. Right? He knows, I think, even before Jesus asked him to follow him, that things are going to have to change dramatically. To follow Jesus requires a change. But Peter doesn't want this, right? He doesn't want things to change because that requires effort, it requires discipline, it requires submission to duty. And you know what he'd rather do than that? He'd rather drown. He'd rather drown. He's totally irrational. Right? But we do the same thing. We desire things without duty. We want the benefit of something without the work. And we will launch out into the deep if we think it's going to make us happy. C.S. Lewis says that the problem is that our desires are actually not strong enough. We don't desire enough. We stop short. He says we fool about with drink and sex and ambition when infinite joy is offered us. We're like an infinite child, he says, who wants to go on making mud pies in a slum because he can't comprehend or understand what's meant by a holiday vacation at the sea. And we think we desire a fish without effort, when really we ought to desire the one who made the fish, and in fact the entire ocean and every fish in it. Right? So whatever we desire on earth, right, it's not enough. Right? Ultimately, right, our desire is fulfilled in Jesus. On the other hand, when God gives us a duty, we don't believe it's going to work or produce the results we desire. God tells us to do the work, to take up the work that he's given us to do, whatever he's called us to do in our vocation. But we think it's in vain. The fruit is not always obvious. After all, Christ does often delay his help, as he does in Luke chapter 5, when the disciples are all out all night fishing and they catch nothing. Right? But eventually Christ does provide the fruit, or the fish. He satisfies the desire of every living thing. Psalm 145:16. For example, when the boss is unfair and when everyone else, every other employee takes advantage of him, it'd be very easy to do the same thing. It'd be hard to do the honorable and honest thing, because it would mean cost to me. Right? It would certainly be less profitable. Right? But to work faithfully and honestly is its own reward. Proverbs 14 says, all hard work brings a profit. Parents can feel this. Parents can feel like raising children is pointless. God calls parents and fathers to bring up their children in the training and admonition of the Lord. But, the 60th time of trying to correct an erring child, or the 40th time of trying to start home devotions and failing, or the 20th time of hushing a child in church, it can seem pointless. But God promises the work is not in vain. The work is good. And when the child is old, they will not depart from God's word. They will remember your instruction. God calls husbands to love their wives, and for wives to honor their husbands. Sometimes it can seem pointless, right? It'd be very much easier to just desire someone else. There's no duty involved, no work, no responsibility. But to do the hard thing, to put in the time and the effort, that's how God promises to fulfill our desire. It might not make sense, but that's how God will fulfill our desire, through this duty. Right? God tells Eve that her desire is for her husband. He also tells Adam he's going to have to work at it, right? To not be slothful in his duties. Honoring those in authority, honoring and loving our country can seem very, very difficult, right? But again, that is our duty. God promised to fulfill our desire through submission to this duty that he has given us to do. Right? There will be work. There's always going to be duty and work in our lives, and the fruit will not always be obvious, but God will provide the fruit or the fish. This is the call to faith. God calls you in the same way he calls Peter, to do what he has called you to do, and to believe that his word will not return void. I heard a paraphrase of Martin Luther's teaching on this, the duty of work and how God satisfies our desire through it. Something like, you should work as if your salvation depends on it, and come home thanking God it doesn't. You should work as though your salvation depends on it, and come home thanking God it doesn't. God provides the work. He prepares the good paths that we are to walk in, and God will provide the fruit. He will do what we are unable to do. The proof is the telos, the highest good of Good Friday. The words of Christ, it is finished. The telos, right? Tetelestai, it is finished. Your sin is atoned for, and your guilt is covered by Jesus' blood. Your laziness has been done away with and covered by Jesus' work on the cross. Your hunger is satisfied and your thirst is met in Jesus' fasting and thirst on the cross. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. In Jesus, you are filled. St. Augustine actually said that the point of being a Christian is to achieve the happy life. And what he means is this. He says that the man who asks how he can enjoy the happy life is indeed asking just this. Where is the highest good? In it is the resting place of desire. God himself is the fountain of our happiness. He himself is the end of all our longing. Peter desired a fish, and Christ would have given him the entire ocean. Right? Literally, the entire ocean was swimming to Peter in that moment. But the better work was, but the better end was for Peter to take up the work Christ had given him to do, to launch out into the deep and to let down his nets again for a catch, and to go be a fisher of men. Christ fulfills the work. He unites desire with duty and fulfills it all. So you do not be daunted or discouraged if your work seems long or in vain, if you've toiled all night and caught nothing. God will bless, and his goodness never fails. He neither slumbers nor sleeps. Christ not only will fulfill your desires, but he is the fulfillment of all your desires. Likewise, he is the end, the telos of all our work. In him it is all finished. We desire liberty, and he gives us freedom from sin, death, and the devil. We desire a good life, and he gives us heaven. We desire happiness, and he gives us his body and blood, which for our soul is the highest good. Thanks be to God that we have these rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. May you find your happiness in Jesus Christ. God be with you.